The court considers that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
This is my video update on this Friday midday, May the 24th. Let's talk about some news, and we've got some big waves here in Ayia Napa, Cyprus. Well, these are big waves for Ayia Napa. Maybe not for other parts of the world, but for here, these are big waves. There's like a dude passed out. Long night partying. All right, let's talk about what is going on in the world today. And we have got to start this video off with an incredible story. An absolutely incredible story coming out of Georgia. And the Georgia Prime Minister, Irakli Kobakidze, yesterday he posted on Facebook that an unnamed commissioner from the European Union warned him during a recent phone call that the West would take a number of measures against him if his government pressed ahead with the law requiring foreign NGOs in Georgia to disclose their funding. While listing these measures, he mentioned, "You see what happened to Fico, and you should be very careful," Kobakidze wrote on Facebook. This is what an EU commissioner told him during a phone call, trying to get the Prime Minister of Georgia to cancel the NGO foreign agents law that I've talked about at great length in many videos. This NGO law is really, really freaking out the collective West. So we have a threat. You see what happened to Slovakia Prime Minister Robert Fico when he was shot 5 times in an assassination attempt that happened about a week ago. From what I understand, just an update on Fico, from what I understand, the attacker wanted more weapons for Ukraine. Bratislava's decision not to send weapons to Kiev was one of the major reasons behind the recent attack on Prime Minister Fico. A Slovak specialized criminal court concluded on Thursday, as it was decided on a pre-trial restraint measure against the suspect. So the person that tried to assassinate Robert Fico wanted weapons to Ukraine. I believe the assassin's wife was from Ukraine, though I'm not 100% sure on that. I've actually read reports saying that she was sympathetic to Russia, but I've read a lot more reports, more credible reports, saying that she was pushing her husband to support weapons for Ukraine, and that's what led him to try and assassinate Fico. So anyway, that's the latest update from Slovakia. Let's get back to Georgia. So the threat from the EU Commissioner to Irakli Kobakidze, what a cool name, was that you better take back the foreign agents law, or else you might face the same outcome as Fico. And he posted this on Facebook. A threat. This was a threat. He posted this phone call conversation. What went down on Facebook. And everyone was asking, who was this commissioner? Was it perhaps the top commissioner? Was it Ursula that would make such a threat? Or was this one of her other vice commissioners? She has something like 14 vice presidents or vice commissioners. And sure enough, as the day went along, the commissioner who made this phone call threat to the Georgian Prime Minister was revealed. Commissioner Verhelyi. I believe he is the commissioner for EU expansion or enlargement or something like that. And I believe he is from Hungary, if I'm not mistaken. Though I imagine he's very anti-Orban, but this commissioner revealed himself. And he tried to explain the telephone conversation with the Georgian Prime Minister. Of course, in his view, it was taken out of context. The conversation was taken out of context, according to Verhelyi. Let me read you what he said. Being fully aware of the very strong pro-EU sentiment of Georgian society during my phone conversation, I felt the need to call the attention of the Prime Minister on the importance not to inflame further the already fragile situation by adopting this law, which could lead to further polarization and to possible uncontrolled situations on the streets of Tbilisi. In this regard, the latest tragic event in Slovakia was made as an example and as a reference to where such high level of polarization can lead in a society, even in Europe. Once again, I regret that one part of my phone call was not just fully taken out of context, but was also presented to the public in a way which could give rise to a complete misinterpretation of the originally intended aim of my phone call. Right. It was all taken out of context. I was looking after the best interests of the Prime Minister of Georgia. That was the purpose of my phone call. That's why I told him about Fico. That's why I warned him about what happened to Robert Fico. I had his best interests in mind. That is what Commissioner Verhelyi is trying to sell us on. Man, what a mess. What a mess the EU has gotten itself into. And he talks about the tensions and the protests in Tbilisi. Bro, you're the ones that are creating this tension. And now you want us to believe that you called the Prime Minister of Georgia and told him that he better take back the foreign agents law because things are very tense in Tbilisi and we have your best interests at heart. We don't want to see what happened to Fico happen to you because a lot of protesters in Tbilisi, a lot of angry protesters in Tbilisi. Man. What kind of mafia tactics are these from the EU? What kind of mafia tactics are these? I'm trying to picture, right now, I'm trying to picture the phone call between this EU commissioner and the Prime Minister of Georgia. And in my head, I've got the music from The Godfather playing. You know, the music. And I can like see the phone call going down with this commissioner calling the Prime Minister of Georgia. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm calling you on behalf of the European Union, we like to consider ourselves to be a rational and reasonable union. And Mr. Prime Minister of Georgia, it has come to our attention that you might be trying to pass a law which could expose some of our business with the NGOs, not only in Georgia, but maybe even around the world. Now, Prime Minister of Georgia, I would consider it a personal favor to me and to my family if you cancel this foreign agents law. It would be considered a very, very important favor if you do this, and it would show a lot of respect to me and my family, Mr. Prime Minister of Georgia. If for some reason this law goes through, I'm worried that something might happen to you. Maybe a horse's head in your bed or something like that. I don't know. But, Mr. Prime Minister of Georgia, I think it would be best for you and for the European Union to just not go ahead with this foreign agents law. You understand? This is just business. Can you do me this one favor? You do me this favor, I will do a favor for you. That is how the family works. Capiche, Mr. Prime Minister of Georgia? I bet you that's how the phone call went down. I bet you I'm not far off. Oh, man. And we're gonna make him an offer he can't refuse, Ursula. Don't worry. I'll handle it. I'll make him an offer he can't refuse. Something strange is going on in the world, everybody. Something very strange, very sinister. You had the attempted assassination of Fico. From what I understand, a couple of weeks ago, there was an attempted assassination against a plot against the president of Serbia, Vučić, which was foiled. Yesterday, I read that there was a foiled assassination bomb threat in Portugal. One sec. Aimed against André Ventura of the Chega party at Chega's headquarters. Very, very strange. So Blinken, sticking with Georgia, he posted on Twitter X, I am announcing a new visa restriction policy for those responsible for undermining democracy in Georgia, including in connection with the Georgian Dream's proposed foreign influence legislation. That's from Blinken. And Politico is reporting U.S. Senate to consider bipartisan Georgia sanctions bill as foreign agent row rages. The proposals would allocate millions for democracy building while imposing restrictions on Georgia Dream politicians. Sanctions. They want to sanction Georgia Dream politicians because of a foreign agents law, which they say is against democracy. The democratically elected government of Georgia is passing a law to have more transparency with the funding of NGOs, whether the funding is from Russia or the United States or Europe or Greece or Cyprus or China or Indonesia, it doesn't matter. Wherever the funding is coming from, the Georgian government just wants to know where the funding is coming from. I don't know, maybe they would like to maybe tax this funding? I don't know. Track it a little better. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. But this is against democracy, according to Blinken and the U.S. Congress. Freedom House, George W. Bush Institute, and McCain Institute call U.S. and EU to impose immediate sanctions on Georgia Dream. Oh, boy. So which is the side of good and which is the side of evil? How do you know you're on the right side of this Georgia foreign agents issue? On the one side, you have the EU making threats to the Georgian prime minister. You have Blinken with sanctions. You have the US Senate saying they're going to sanction Georgia. And you have Freedom House, the George W. Bush Institute, and the McCain Institute that are upset with this foreign agents law. Which is the good side, which is the bad side? This is not really hard. To all the protesters in Tbilisi that are upset with this foreign agents law, you are protesting on the side of Freedom House, George W. Bush Institute, and the McCain Institute. Well done. I'm clapping. Well done. Well done, protesters in Georgia. That's the side that you're on, the side of the McCain Institute and the George W. Bush Institute. My God. My God. So let's move on now and let's talk about the other big story that happened yesterday, which was the Srebrenica UN vote, which happened in the General Assembly yesterday. And this vote is to have a genocide commemoration to take place every year on July 11th for the events that happened in Srebrenica during the war in Bosnia. Keep in mind that everything that happened in Yugoslavia, Bosnia, Srebrenica, that tribunal in Yugoslavia actually led to the creation in 2002 of the ICC. So my understanding is that all the tribunals in Yugoslavia that were pretty much 100% directed at Serbia, those tribunals gave birth to the International Criminal Court. And we know everything that's happening with the ICC. Today and a year ago with Putin's arrest, and now with the possible arrest warrants of Israeli officials and Hamas officials, which are freaking out the Biden White House and the US Congress. So everything that happened then has actually given way to everything that the ICC has been doing over the past couple of years. So it's a huge story. Yugoslavia, Bosnia, Srebrenica. And I think the best place to start, I'm not going to get into it in this video, but I think the best place to start to try and understand what happened, I would recommend the documentary Weight of Chains and all the work of Boris Malagursky. I think that's a good place to start in order to familiarize yourself with what happened in the Balkans. And of course, there's a lot of other documentaries and reports as to what happened in the Balkans. But what I want to focus on is why. Why do you want to bring up this topic now? Why do you want a vote on Srebrenica? Why today? Because the timing is awful. Given everything else that is happening in the world, why do you want to fan the flames of the Balkans and the wars that took place in the Balkans? Well, I have two theories. First of all, let me tell you the vote. This was passed, this resolution by Germany and Rwanda. And when I say Germany, that means that the United States put Germany up to this. But this resolution was passed with a simple majority. In favor, 84 countries, against 19, and 68 countries abstentions. Now, an abstention in this vote can mean two things. It could mean that they wanted to vote in favor of this resolution, but they decided that this is bad timing and all you're going to do is to create more tension in the Balkans at a time when we don't need it. That's the example of the United Arab Emirates. They said that they're in support of the Muslims in Bosnia with this resolution, but they abstained because they said that all this does is create more tensions in the Balkans and we don't need more tension right now. So that's why they voted to abstain. The other side is the countries that abstained because they feel that a lot of what happened was unjust and the tribunals were unjust and there was a lot of fog of war that happened at the time and the tribunals were not conducted in a fair manner. And perhaps this resolution is the wrong resolution at the wrong time, which is the case of, say, Cyprus. So Cyprus voted to abstain in this resolution because I'm sure Cyprus was getting a lot of pressure from the United States and from Europe to vote in favor of the resolution, while Cyprus would rather vote against the resolution. And so they took the middle road and they abstained. Greece also abstained. Yes, Greece also abstained. So they're getting a lot of pressure from the US to vote in favor of this and from Germany to vote in favor. But of course, Greece can't vote in favor of this resolution. And so they said, we're going to abstain from this. So you can look at the votes, the abstain votes in two directions. I just wanted to say that. But why? Why now? Why bring this up now? I think that one of the reasons they wanted to bring this up is to provoke Serbia, to cause more problems in the Balkans because everything is going so horribly wrong for the collective West in not only in Ukraine but also in the Middle East. And they have difficulties trying to ramp up the conflict with China. You see what's happening in the Caucasus with Georgia and the release of the information on this phone call between the Prime Minister and the EU. And so everywhere that they're trying to create more conflicts or mini conflicts, they're failing. And the big conflicts that they have going on, they're losing, like in Ukraine. And so where do they circle back to? To the Balkans. And so I think that one of the reasons that Germany put this resolution to the General Assembly for a vote is because they want to create problems and tension and conflict in the Balkans. And so they circle back to pick on Serbia. Another reason I think that they put this resolution to the General Assembly, which is actually quite clever, is to create divisions between the global majority of the global majority that is aligned against the collective West, or that is aligning against the collective West. Say the global majority that is pushing for a multipolar world. They want to create divisions in that global majority, the global South, you may call it, between Christians and Orthodox and Muslims. Because this resolution creates those divisions between Orthodox and Muslims. And a lot of the voting was along religious lines. For example, Iran voted in favor of this resolution, even though Iran and Serbia are in the global majority, in the global South, pushing for a multipolar world. And you can see Iran sided along, you could say along religious lines if you want to explain it like that. So I think this is actually quite clever on the part of Germany and the collective West. So Vučić, a lot of videos of Vučić when the vote was taking place, the president of Serbia, and he had the Serbian flag, and it looked like he was almost in tears as the vote was taking place. Not a good look. I don't think he should have presented himself like that during the vote. That's just my own personal opinion. But the speech that he gave at the UN was very good. The speech that he gave was good. A very measured and professional speech from Vučić at the UN, but when he was sitting and watching the votes taking place, not the best look there. So I give him a 50-50 on that one. And the Russian ambassador to the UN, Nebenzia, who voted against this resolution, boy, did he slam Germany for this resolution. I mean, he really laid into Germany for this resolution, basically telling Germany, who are you to talk about the G word, right? Who are you, Germany, to talk about this? Anyway, go read his statements. I don't have it in front of me right now, but Nebenzia was absolute fire in his statements at the UN. And one of the outcomes of this resolution is that Republika Srpska, they came out with a statement saying that they are going to draft a peaceful division of Bosnia within 30 days. So they want out of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is according to a Twitter X post from Dodik. Today we start with a formal request for a peaceful demarcation. We will first propose to clarify the political competences of the entities while preserving the current model of functioning of the economy and adapting it within a few years of the model of peaceful demarcation. So I think the collective West, they're trying to start trouble in the Balkans. Actually, it's obvious. It's crystal clear they're trying to start trouble in the Balkans. They're trying to provoke tensions in the Balkans, trying to provoke Serbia, trying to stir up religious hatred, trying to bring up some very old wounds and atrocities that did happen on all sides during the war. And that's what they're trying to do. All I can say, whoa. All I can say is don't fall for it, because that's what they're trying to do. That was a huge lizard. He's right in there. I'll leave him alone. I don't want to scare him. This is his home, not my home. So you gotta respect the lizards. This is their home. Look at that lizard. Huge, huh? Let me see if I can zoom in on our friend. I don't want to scare him, so I won't get too close. All right, my friend, enjoy the day. Have a nice Friday. Have a nice weekend. I'm going to continue to do my news reports. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, they're trying to provoke conflict and tension in the Balkans because everything else is going so horribly wrong for them everywhere else. And one thing that does scare them is when they see the global South aligning across all religions and ideologies. That scares them. So you got to divide and conquer, or divide and rule, I guess is a better way to put it. Anyway, enough of that. If you want to learn more about everything that happened in Yugoslavia and in Bosnia, I strongly recommend Boris Malagurski, The Weight of Change. Very objective, by the way. A very objective view of things, in my opinion. And an excellent filmmaker with excellent documentaries. And it's a good start. I think it's a good way to start to learn about everything that happened because, as I was saying over there by the beach, a lot of what happened then explains a lot of what's happening today. For example, the ICC and the creation of the ICC. All right. Yeah, I'm rambling a lot today. Let's move on because we have so much news to get to. This might be a long video. Don't be mad at me in the comments down below. What can I do? There's a lot of news going on. A lot of news. What should I get to now? I'll do the next topics very quickly. Poland and Greece, they want to create an Iron Dome in Europe. Okay, let's just spend more on military. They want to create this big air defense umbrella across all of Europe. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense coming from Poland and Greece. But, the MIC is going to be very happy. That's for sure. German plan to arm Kiev is failing. Berlin's push to supply Ukraine with more Patriot batteries is reportedly facing reluctance from other countries. So Germany, they had this initiative to get all the countries of the collective West to donate their Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. That was the German initiative. And no country wants to or has the Patriot air defense systems to donate to Ukraine. So the whole thing is a big flop. And they want to create an umbrella across all of Europe, Poland and Greece. And they admit that they can't even donate. They don't even have the air defenses to donate to Ukraine, to give to Ukraine. If they had them, they would give them. Believe me. Ukrainian pilots have completed their training in Arizona, my former home state, before I left the U.S., of AZ, the Arizona Sun Devils. Arizona State Sun Devils. Tempe, Arizona. Let's see. Yeah, they finished their training in Arizona, and now they're going to go to Europe, and they're going to finish up training in Europe, and then by the fall, according to reports, the Ukraine pilots will be ready to take on the Russian pilots. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We all know that the only pilots that are going to be taking on the Russians, if they are going to send F-16s into battle, the only pilots will be NATO pilots or actually ex-NATO contracted pilots. And those contracted pilots, man, they better be paid a lot of money, because you are being sent to your annihilation. If I was an ex-NATO pilot, an ex-NATO F-16 pilot, and NATO contacted me and said, "Look, we would like you to get involved in the conflict in Ukraine and fly an F-16," man, I would tell Stoltenberg, I would be like, "Bro, you don't have enough money in the world to pay me to fight the Russians." I don't know. They would have to pay me something like, I don't even know, man. Maybe I would put down terms like something along the lines of, I'll fly, what would I tell them? I would fly 3 times. That's it. 3 times, and each time I'm flying, you got to pay me $10 million. I don't know. Maybe something like that, maybe. But it's crazy. You have to be crazy to take on this contract. Or very, very desperate for money. Or very greedy. Maybe very greedy for money. So that's what's going on there. And what else? Ukraine, they launched missiles into Crimea yesterday. 2 civilians were killed. They launched missiles into Russian territory, right? But as I've said in videos in the past, Crimea, and they used ATACMS. They used the U.S. ATACMS missiles. But Crimea is in some sort of gray zone. When the Russian military and the U.S. military, when they were putting down the ground rules for this proxy war, which I'm sure did happen, when they were putting down the rules, for some reason, they said that Crimea is going to remain in a gray zone, and Russia's not going to go after NATO assets or NATO commanders in Ukraine if they hit Crimea, as long as US weapons or NATO weapons are not used to hit at Russia pre-2014 territory. That was the deal. That was the deal that was made. For some reason, Crimea was carved out as some sort of gray area, and Russia doesn't really, I mean, they defend and they retaliate, but they don't go after NATO really hard when NATO weapons are used to attack Crimea. So that happened as well. And we also have an update. It's super windy, by the way, so I think my mic did a great job last time. I think it'll do a great job this time, but let's hope so. Otherwise, this video is going to be a freaking mess. It is so windy. My God, I think you can even see like my beard is moving in the wind. Anyway, we have an update on the Crocus terror attack. Haven't heard much from the investigation, but the head of the FSB said this morning, actually, that it looks like Ukraine was indeed involved. Ukraine intelligence directly involved in Moscow terror attack. The investigation is ongoing, but we can already say with certainty that Ukraine's military intelligence has a direct relation to this attack, Bortnikov said at a Commonwealth of Independent States Special Services Leaders Gathering in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. Okay, nothing that we already didn't know or kind of knew, that Ukraine intel was involved, which means Budanov. When he says that Ukraine intel was involved, he's talking about Budanov. That's what the FSB is saying. One more story, and we'll do a clown world. Very quick, the King of Bahrain was meeting with Putin, and I believe he is now the head of the Council of Arab Nations, of Arab States, and he went to visit Putin because Russia's so isolated, right? So he went to visit Putin. They talked about cooperation and trade and investment. And the King of Bahrain also asked Putin if he would help to mediate peace in the Middle East. Yep. He would like Russia and Putin to mediate a peace in the Middle East. And all the Arab states are on board with this. They all agreed that Russia is the country, the best country to mediate a peace in the Middle East. So isolated, that Russia. They are so isolated. It sucks being isolated like Russia. Huh? And then Putin flew to Belarus, and he's having a 2-day meeting with Lukashenko, and they're talking about they're planning and they're discussing a second round of tactical nuclear drills. Yep. What did I say yesterday? That most likely Russia will send warnings to the United States about all the talk of attacking Russian territory with U.S. and collective West weapons, that Russia's going to start sending strong messages to the U.S. Well, 24 hours later, Putin was in Minsk, and they're talking about another round of tactical nuke drills in Belarus, very close to Europe. That's going to freak out the EU in a big, big way. All right, let's do some clown worlds, and we will wrap this video up. And the first clown world comes from Zelensky's office, where he is saying that the peace summit, which was focused on his 10-point peace plan, has now become a peace summit focused on a 3-point peace plan. Yep, that is what Zelensky is announcing. At the summit, 3 points will be considered: nuclear safety, food security, the return of abducted Ukraine children, and all for all exchange. According to these 3 points, if all countries support them, step-by-step technical plans will be developed, and then different nations will hand them over to Russia, at various venues and communicate with their representatives. According to Zelensky, Russia will have to respond to the majority representing the world. If we can bring these 3 points to a logical implementation, then we will be able to move on to the second part, complex points that can lead to an end to the war. No one says that Russia will agree tomorrow, but it is important that we maintain the initiative because they came against us with war, the president said. So no talk about Russia retreating, no talk about a tribunal against Russia, no talk about the Putin administration stepping down, no talk about reparations to Ukraine in this peace conference that will take place in Switzerland. All of that has been scrapped. They're now going to talk about nuclear safety, food security, and the return of children. And every country that's going to attend is going to be in favor of these types of initiatives. I mean, if you put down an initiative which says that we need to have food safety or we need to have nuclear safety, what country's going to say no? No, we don't need nuclear safety or we don't need food safety. This is just a trick. This is a trick from Zelensky and from the collective West to try and get some buy-in. If the countries that go to the peace summit, if they're in agreement with these 3 points, then we can maybe get them to agree on our other points in the 10-point peace plan. It's nonsense. Every country's going to understand exactly what's going on, but it also shows the collective West and Zelensky and the United States, the Biden White House is in retreat. They understand that the peace summit is falling apart based on the 10-point peace plan, and they're trying to save it by scaling it down. This is pretty sad, pretty pathetic, but it shows that they are in retreat, and they understand that much of the world is with Russia. Much of the world is siding with Russia, and it looks like the Swiss peace summit is crumbling. It's already crumbling before it even started. Even Biden announced that he's not going to go. This is from Bloomberg. Biden set to skip Ukraine peace summit for Hollywood fundraiser. That is from Bloomberg. Even Biden, I'd rather go to Hollywood and hang out with George Clooney. I'd rather hang out with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and Clooney. Why should I go to Switzerland? The whole thing is crumbling, man. The whole peace summit is crumbling. And one more clown world, courtesy of King Clown himself, Boris Johnson, who met with Azov battalion guys in London. Actually, they even spoke to the parliament, from what I understand. 3 Azov battalion guys. And here's the interesting part about the 3 guys that traveled to the UK. These were 3 guys who were in that whole trade with Turkey. Remember everything that happened in Mariupol? And they were supposed to stay in Turkey until the war was over, and then Erdogan backstabbed Putin, and he released the Azov guys. Those were the guys. 3 of those guys that were in London. They should have been in Turkey with the whole Turkey-Russia-Azov deal. But Erdogan set them free. And now they're in London. Shouldn't they be on the front lines, these guys, anyway? They're in London, and Boris Johnson was talking about, when he was talking to the Azov guys, NAZIs, right? What a shameful act to have these guys in your parliament. Shame, shame, shame. Anyway, Greece, we had an Azov guy speak to our parliament during the days of Mariupol. I remember that one. What a shameful act. Some parties walked out of parliament because it was so shameful to have Azov speaking to the Greek parliament. But anyway, it's the UK's turn now. And Boris Johnson was speaking to these guys, and Boris was pulling out the new line. This is the new line, everybody, and I'm going to wrap up this video. I apologize if this video is very long. But Boris is parroting the new line, which is, we've got to allow Ukraine to use our weapons to hit Russian territory because Ukraine is fighting with one hand behind its back. This is the new line. This is the new narrative. Ukraine is fighting Russia and has been fighting Russia with one hand tied behind its back because we haven't allowed Ukraine to use our weapons to strike pre-2014 Russian territory. That's the narrative. That's why Ukraine is losing. They've been fighting with one hand tied behind their back. They've gotten $1 trillion. They've gotten weapons from 40 plus countries. God knows how many weapons they've gotten from 40 plus countries. 10 years of NATO training, 10 years of fortifications, 16,000 sanctions placed against Russia. And Putin is fighting NATO proxy with 10% of his military because he's holding back. He's holding back and he's trying not to escalate on the one side, and on the other side, he's keeping a big military in reserve just in case NATO does something stupid. But it's Ukraine that is fighting Russia with one hand tied behind its back. It's Russia that's been fighting the collective West with both hands tied behind its back. On purpose. Like I said, they're trying to manage this conflict. They don't want World War III. Russia doesn't want World War III. And Russia doesn't want to destroy Ukraine in the way that, say, the US destroyed Iraq. Russia's thinking long term. Anyway, that's the narrative. We need to allow Ukraine to use our weapons to attack Russia because they're fighting with both hands, with one hand tied behind their back. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. This is the latest excuse in a long line of excuses that they come up with, whether it's a wonder weapon that never works, or whether it's this latest one hand behind their back excuse to try and explain why Russia is winning. They just can't come out and say Russia is winning because they outplayed us, they outsmarted us, and they have the best military in the world. They just can't admit that. People would have more respect for the leaders of the collective West or someone like Johnson if he would just come out and say, we screwed up. We thought we could get regime change in Russia, and Putin outsmarted us. And the Russian government, they outsmarted us. And then they beat us in this proxy war. It was a dumb plan. We tried it. I flew to Kiev. I told Zelensky to scrap the peace deal in March 2022. I messed up. That's what Boris Johnson should be saying, but he doesn't. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Pick up some merch, 15% off. Use the code GetReady15. Take care.